Hello, everyone, and welcome to our online session today. I am very pleased to introduce you to Candace Northey, who is going to be our main presenter today. Before I do that, though, a couple of housekeeping items. I've had a couple questions come in already, which is awesome. You can keep using that questions pane. We will be stopping throughout the presentation here to answer questions as they come in, because there's a lot of details to cover. So please enter your questions in that questions pane as you think of them, and we will be taking little breaks throughout to answer those. First question I have here is, will we be getting a copy of the slides? Yes, we will send out both a copy of the slides and a recording of this whole session to everyone who registered today. So feel free to sit there and listen and absorb everything that Candace is showing you, and we will be able to send you the notes after. So Candace, who you're hearing from today, actually joined iTraxx in 2003, and in the 18 years since has grown to become a prominent leader both within here at iTraxx and within the online research industry as a whole. Right now she's working as iTraxx Client Services Manager, where she, according to her colleagues, really emulates iTraxx's core values of customer service and assuming first that it can be done. We have received hundreds and hundreds of emails and comments from clients about Candace's creativity, expertise, and amazing ability to execute even the most challenging online qualitative studies. So as you can imagine, her time is in very high demand these days, so we feel really, really lucky to have Candace here today to walk us through the ins and outs of using iTraxx Realtime. So as I mentioned before, we will be answering questions throughout, and we will, you'll see me in a little bit with Candace to answer some of those questions as they come in. But without further ado, I am gonna let Candace take it from here.
Thank you, Crystal. So welcome, everyone. I'm excited that everyone can join us here today. As Crystal mentioned, my name is Candace. I am the Client Services Manager for iTraxx, and today the intention of this webinar is to give you an overview of the Realtime software throughout, and I'll be booking everything, or going through everything from booking reports, booking to reports, so everything across your project that you're going to need to know. In order for you to be able to see the software more directly, I have pre-recorded portions of the software application itself, so you can see it and understand what is going on. So we, and the other thing to note, as Crystal said, we are taking questions as you go along, and we'll be stopping throughout this to answer any questions that are relevant for this action we've gone through. So let's begin at the very beginning. So the first thing I want to show you is just how to book your real-time project. Now this is important because you need to go in there and book your study. I'm just going to share a video around this, so just give me a second. So you're going to log in at go.itraxx.com. If you're an existing muting. So you will log in at go.itraxx.com. So this is the login that you would have had when you you can also change the time zone. Now the time zone is a searchable area, so you might notice that I changed from Eastern time to Central time by typing in Central. You're going to automatically be the project contact, but you could change that to a colleague in your account if you need to. The second stage of the booking is you can book in your activities here if you'd like. So there is a way to add your activities as you're booking your main project. For today, just because I want to show you some of the settings, I'm going to hit next and we'll book those in the actual project. The last page of the booking lets you assign any other colleagues that might be helping you to the project. So you can have multiple colleagues in your account and only have certain colleagues see certain projects. Anytime you access a new project, so one that you've just booked or one that you have that's already been booked that you're accessing for the first time, you're going to have to register. So just hit save and continue on that page, and then your project is created. If you didn't create your activities in the first step, it's going to be blank like we're seeing here, and you'll be able to click the add button to create an activity. And so you would just choose the activity. In this case, we're choosing the iTrax real-time activity, and it'll bring up a form for you to fill out. Here you'll put in the activity name. So one thing you might notice is that there are two activity name fields, and that's because you can change and customize a different activity name for your participant than for what you and your observers see. So if you have certain segmentation that you don't want the participants to know about, you could put that in the activity name that you see, and then the activity name that your participants see is different. Of course, you'll do a start time and end time. There's pickers in there, and you can see the time zone. You would also be able to indicate how long your activity is. You can also click into this field here in order to change it to like 30, 15 after. The other thing you can do on this page is opt to have concierge support. So you can opt to have somebody, it's not required, but you can, if you want to, for an additional $100 an hour, have somebody from our help desk sit in your group and assist you with some of the things like greeting your participants and the waiting room, etc. When you're done, you just hit next, and this will take you to the settings page. Now, I'm not going to go into too much, but there are some settings here I'll be talking about later on that'll help you with some of the automation around reminders and that type of thing, as well as determining what your observers see. And then the last stage is if you have participants set up, you can also assign them at the activity level. So usually people are booking before they upload their participants, but sometimes you might have your users loaded, and then you can assign your users as needed. Okay, so that's how to book. Some quick tips on booking. Book early. As soon as you know when your timing is going to be, I encourage people to book it right away. And then it's one last thing that you have to worry about. Align the timing with your recruitment as well. So one of the things I'll be showing you in a few minutes is time selection and how you can use your screeners and integrate your screeners to automatically have people pass into our system. And so if you're doing that in particular, you want to make sure that your groups are booked and the activities are there before you start that recruitment. Consider the time zones and availability of your participants. So this is something we get asked quite often. What time should our focus groups be? If you're doing everybody on the East Coast, then you have a little bit more flexibility. Let's say most people still do their research in the evening, so 5, 6, 7. However, if you're doing it across the entire continent, you might be wanting to look for kind of a midline time, like 8 p.m. Eastern, which would be 4 p.m. Pacific time. You also want to consider that most business-to-business research is done throughout the day because people will consider it part of their work day, whereas consumer research, you want to make sure that if you're working with people that work all day, that they're able and available to join in the evenings or weekends or what have you. And the other thing I recommend is set some of the settings now. So when you're booking your project and booking your activities, set some of the settings now in order to save yourself some time. So as part of my process, I book the groups, I set my reminders, and then I just don't have to worry about it later on. It's just one less thing. Now, I just mentioned that there is something called time selection. So you can set it up so your participants can choose a time. So, and I'm going to show you what this looks like really quickly here. I apologize if I get unmuted when I play it. I'll just try to make sure that I mute right away here. Okay, so we are on a page with time selection. Time selection is something you have to get set up in your project before you start booking things in. In this case, you can see at the top, I have an activities area. That's where somebody has actually chosen a time already. And then down below are my available slots. So what I can do as a moderator or a project manager is set up specific time slots that my participants can choose from. Here I'm just showing you that you can see that it's not grayed out, whereas the available slots are grayed out. And to add new time slots, you click the add button. Here you'll get an interface similar to the project booking, where you can choose the activity type that you want to book. So I'm booking real-time videos, and I'm going to give it an activity name. Now, this activity name by default will be what the participant sees. You can definitely go in and edit this in order to have all the settings that I showed you before with the adding the booking. You can also set a maximum number of participants. So if you're doing an interview, you'd have 1. If you want to have 10 people be able to join the session, you could put 10, etc. You can also set the start date and then the amount of time. Now I'm clicking here, this is the copy button. So I'm just making a copy. I could certainly just click on the buttons at the bottom. But one thing to note is when you're making a copy, there's a little bit of intelligence built into this where it's going to recognize that, oh, your previous interview was 1 hour long. So we'll put this for the, an hour after that. So it's not going to directly copy, it's going to listen to what you have previously. And you can just keep on putting, copying in as needed, and you can edit that activity name. And when you're done, you just hit save. And now I have 3 new activities in my list. Now this is the participant view. I've set up integration. So I've gone ahead and I've set it up so I have a screening survey where people put in some information into the screening survey that carries into my registration page. So hitting continue will take me to the iTraxx registration page where they have to create a password. This is the password that they'll actually use for their interview or focus group later on. And just ignore all my millions of passwords here. I log in with test users all the time, and I need to clear the cache. The time zone is much like the other time zone I showed you. It is searchable, and they have to accept the terms of use. I'm going to hit save and continue. Ignore this password item again. Once again, I just use a lot of passwords that are similar, so Chrome doesn't like that. But this is what the participant will see. So these are all the time zones I have set up, and they can go ahead and choose any of the time zones that are available. There's also the opportunity, there's a button below that says none of these times work for me, and that lets my participants say, hey, it doesn't work for me, and I can let them choose any projects that have or activities that have already been chosen as standby if I want to. In this case, just because I wanted to show you the selection, they would go and they would click to confirm, and then they would get activities area. Now, another thing to note is that they will also, if you set it up, they will automatically get an email with the additional details. So there is some automation around, them getting their invite at this point as well. So that's something else you can have set up in regards to that if needed. But the other thing that they can do on this page, if they want to at this point, they can add this to their calendar just from the page. So I'm not going to go into too much, but I'd mentioned that there is something called workflow integration. We have a system within the software where you can add workflows to your account. And so if you are planning on using screening people and then automatically bringing them into the software, we can help you with that. And it does require, usually you want to be working with a developer on it, but you create workflows, you set up some settings like saying, you know, what you want to happen when people get to the registration page, if they get an automated email, you can set that automated email. There's a lot of steps that you can choose to have happen once that goes ahead or in that area, sorry. And then that generated code is sent to the survey programmer. In this case, the screener's program, that code's put into the screener, it redirects to the registration page, and the participant is automatically created. So one of the benefits I really like about the integration is that you don't have to load users up. You can just, you know, the integration will automatically create the users, which lessens your project management load. And then from there, the participant is either added to an activity or they're directed to time selection. And then in either case, an automated email can be sent out. So just lessening your load a little bit. The last thing I want to show you, and if any of you have used our software before, this will be very familiar, and that's loading the users. So I'm going to show you a quick video. If you haven't, this will probably be review for a lot of you, but just how to load the users. And this is really good if you are, you know, getting, here, I'll just start sharing here. So this is the method you would take if you're using a more traditional recruit where people are recruiting for you and then sending you a spreadsheet with, you know, names and email addresses. And this is what, you know, I would say 80 to 90% of our clients load their users in this way. Within your project, there is going to be a users tab where you can go ahead and manage the users, and you can load your users in one of two ways. You can either add your users manually, which you'll put in everyone's email address, you'll put in their full name. The phone number is an optional field, it's not required at all. And then the other thing you'll put in is their role. So you'll be able to make somebody a moderator, an observer, a participant. So all users, regardless of role, are set up either by adding them this way or the upload, which I'll show you in a second. I filled it in just really quickly here. I did a pause and filled it in. One thing to note is that there, and I kept this in purposely, is that I didn't have a correct phone number. So the phone number is not required, but if phone number doesn't match, I can, you know, change it. And then the other thing you want to do is you want to assign your user to an activity. So I've gone ahead and I've assigned them to the first activity. Observers are automatically assigned, so you don't have to worry about, you know, assigning them, but your participants, you want to make sure they have access to a specific activity. That's going to be really important to make sure that when they come in, they can see it. The other way to load your users is to load import from a file. So I click the import button, and then I choose from file. And on this second page is an area where I can upload a file. On this page as well, there is a download example file link. So it does require you to fill out a specific Excel file with everyone's email address, their display name, their full name, phone number, once again, completely optional, their role, what activity they're going to go into, so you can assign the activity as you upload them. The validate email domain just checks that, make sure their email domain's correct. That's great for just a spell check in one way. And then the nice thing here too is you can upload profile information as you're importing people. So you can fill out, and we have just kind of like an example here, but you can fill out anything and then have that upload to people's profile. And it's typically uploaded to an area that they don't see. Once you have it filled out, you just choose it from your computer, and then you can import all your users at the same time. Now, the other thing to note is just kind of going back to that assigning people. So every user record has a little key that you can click on to check to make sure that people are assigned and assign them if necessary. So I didn't have anything filled out into that activity field. So I have to go in and kind of do this manually in this case. So I'm just showing you how to do that on the user list. And then going back to that activity area, how to make sure that you have the right users assigned to individual activities. So there's a little key on the activity area that I just clicked there that will show you who's assigned. And then if I need to, I can assign and unassign people there. Okay, we're at question area now. So yeah, Crystal, any questions from the first section?
We did have some questions come in. So Sarah is wondering, do you set your group for the exact start time and can participants log on early?
That's a really good question. And so participants, there is a buffer of 15 minutes. So if you book your group to start at 8 p.m., for example, participants are going to be able to join at 7:45. If you want people to come in earlier than that, and you want to communicate that, definitely feel free to book it a little bit earlier. But the default buffer is 15 minutes. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're booking.
Okay, and another question. What if participants are assigned to a specific group and we're not wanting them to select a time for themselves?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. The time selection is, you turn it on or turn it off. And it's really project by project that it's turned on. So if you want it on a project, you just ask for the time selection. If you don't want it on, then you just assign participants to the group. Just like the way that I showed you in the last video, you can go and there's a little key icon associated with every activity that you can assign or unassign participants.
Awesome, thanks. And one final question. How far in advance can I book my project and can I edit it once it's been booked, or is that final?
No, it's not final. There is a little edit button associated with every booking. And you can book it as far in advance as you need. So there's no limit to how far. I think the system limit might be like 2 years or something, but no one's booking groups that far in advance. The only caveat I would say is if you have that concierge, you won't be able to edit within 48 hours. We need 48 hours notice just to make sure we have people set up and ready to go because it's an actual person in your group. So we kind of disable that editing within 48 hours if we have concierge assigned to an activity.
Awesome, thank you. That is it for this section, so I'll throw it back to you.
Perfect. I will roll right along. So I want to talk about customizing your email templates. And the reason why I wanted to show this is because once you have your users set up, and I showed you in the last video how to set up your users, you're going to want to send out emails. And this is actually one of the things that I do when I first book my project. And you can, customize and edit as you go along. I really encourage people to customize their templates just to really engage your participants early. So in the Broadcasters tab, there's a templates area that you can click on. Now this will be completely blank. Don't worry, you do have templates in your group. It's just not showing here yet until you click the add button. So once you click the add button, and it'll bring up an area where you can create a template from scratch or use an existing template. And we have a number of templates within the software for every single one of our real-time tools. In this case, I am doing a video group, so I'm going to choose the video real-time tool. So, and that's the one that says real-time that I'm selecting right now. Now, just taking a second, and then hit next after that. Now, in this case, I'm going to adjust a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust that subject line. Our email templates that we have in the system, they will work. Like, don't get me wrong, if you don't have time to do any of this, you can go in and just send out the invite, but they're very generic. So it's always nice to just go ahead and do some adjustments. So first of all, I'm going to change the subject line, and I'm going to change it to the toothpaste study. A couple things to note within the body: you can of course add any text that you feel is necessary. You can adjust anything you might need, but anything in brackets you'll probably want to keep. These brackets are variables that automatically fill in as you send out your invites. So that's everyone's full name, their login URL, the project support ID, how to contact the help desk, and how to test their system before the group starts. And so, like I said, all those variables will fill in. Once you've gone ahead and made that edit, all you have to do is save. And the nice thing about customizing as well is that when you are using the broadcasters, either the reminders or the or just like the straight broadcaster, it's gonna save you a little bit of time, because that's gonna be at the top of your list and you're gonna know that that's the one to use. Once you have it set up, you can always come back here and edit it as needed. So I'm gonna pause that and I'm just gonna show my screen again here. A couple things to note about customizing your email templates and why I encourage it, and some quick wins to add there. As I mentioned, our biggest concern is that the participants are getting the emails and that they are opening them. So I always recommend including the topic of the focus group in the email subject line. And that really helps people know what that email is about, as opposed to, a subject line that they might not know. And use familiar wording. So if your recruiting team has been using certain wording so far, it might be good to know what that is and really make sure that they know that's in the subject line and all the wording is kind of matching that. Avoid spoofing. So something that our board software can do that our real-time software, and we actually took it out of our real-time software purposely, is that you are not going to be able to actually change the email address that the email comes from. You will be able to change who they reply to, but you won't be able to change who the email comes from. And that's to avoid spoofing. And spoofing is where an email is coming from a different domain or a different address than, or it's appearing to come from a different address than the one it's actually being sent from. And that's a really big red flag for spam blockers, so we have taken that out. We've also, our IT team is really dedicated to doing what they can and keeping eye tracks on global whitelists. They also maintain a number of things like sender policy framework and domain key, the DKIM, which is domain key identified mail, in order to get those emails into inboxes. But when you're adding content, especially to your subject line, you want to avoid certain things. So you just want to say, you don't want to put $signs and prize and congratulations. All those words kind of really trigger spam blockers. So just keep that in mind. Also, if you do have somebody that's working with the HTML, and that's completely doable within the emails. But if you have somebody that's adding a lot of images and that type of thing, just keep in mind that all that HTML might also increase the chance of going to spam blockers. Within your email, you also want to put any expectations around timing, testing, participation. For example, if you have a homework assignment that needs to be done prior, or if there's any in-person things, or even if they just need to bring pen and paper, you want to include that into your expectations. And then the other thing I would recommend is including calendar invites. So if you are making a complete from scratch custom invite, it's always good to keep a calendar or include a calendar invite, so it's just added right to their calendar. So I'm going to show you another video here, and this one is how to send an email broadcast. Once again, if you are familiar with our software, this is probably going to be a little bit of review, so here we have our project. And in the project, there is a broadcaster where I can go ahead and I can send an email broadcast. There's 4 pages of the email broadcast. The first really lets you determine who you're going to send the email to. So this is completely blank because I haven't actually chosen anything in my first column, which lets me, say which activities I'm going to send from. You can send from all your activities in your project or one at a time. You can also, choose if you're going to send to your participants, your observers, your moderators. You can pick and choose which participants. There's also some filters on, contacting people that have registered versus not registered, etc. Once you've chosen who you're going to send this email to, you just hit the next button and it'll let you choose what you're going to send to them. So the second stage is choosing what. And there's a few options here. This is where there's templates come in handy, which I'll show you in a second. But on the left-hand side, you can choose who it's coming from. So by default, this will be your name, but you can have it come from your company name. A lot of times when I'm sending invites, I'll say like company name via iTrack. So they know that, it's from your company if they know that company. And then I just mentioned that it's, iTrack's email address. You can change the reply to name. So you can't change the from name, but if you need them to reply to like a recruiter, you can put that in here. You can also use this to send in broadcast immediately, or you can schedule in a reminder. So if you need to, you can schedule a reminder, and then you can choose to include a calendar invite with the invitation or not. As I mentioned, some of the templates will automatically have a calendar invitation. You can see in this list anything with that little box with a check mark in it on the side has a calendar invite. And there's our custom template that we had created earlier. And when I pull it up, it'll automatically fill some things in. I will change the from name just to have it come from iTracks. And then when I'm happy with, I can look through my email itself. I can make any adjustments, like if I find a spelling mistake, or if I'm like, oh, I need to add this one block of text, I can do that here, and then hit next. On this page, I get to see when the invite's going to be sent. In this case, I scheduled it as opposed to sending it right away. But I also get to see one of my records completely filled in. And I can go back to, and here I'm just showing that you can schedule the broadcast, or I can go back and I can make adjustments. So in this case, I'm going to go back and actually send the invite as opposed to scheduling it. And I'm going to hit next. And send my broadcast. Okay, and then one of the things you notice that I was able to set a reminder. So I generally, as a rule of thumb, and there's always exceptions to the rule, I generally send the original invite 1 to 3 days ahead of the group or interview. You can send it later because I know that sometimes you will get last minute recruits, and that's absolutely fine. If you are recruiting people earlier than this, like let's say 7 days before your activity, I'd recommend sending them an invite when you load them, and then a reminder 1 to 3 days ahead of time. So it really depends on when people are recruited in some ways, and just kind of keeping it fresh in their mind. On that note as well, I also set up a reminder the day of and 30 minutes before. And for this step, these 2 reminders, I really use a lot of the automation that's already set up within the software to do that. So like I said, when I go to book my group, a lot of times I'll set some settings so these things just happen, to just set and forget it. So with that, I'm just going to show you how you can go ahead and schedule reminders within the software. Okay, so here we're on that activity page that you've seen quite a bit of. And within the software itself, I'm just gonna wait a second here. You can set a reminder at the activity level. So one of the things you might notice is when you're booking in your activity, we have an automated reminder email that you can send out an email 30 minutes beforehand. And I actually went ahead and I customized an email here. So in addition to the email that I showed you that I customized before, I created another email that I'm going to use specifically for this purpose. And that's for sending ahead of time. And after I save this, I don't have to do anything else. It's just going to automatically give my participants that warning shot, as I like to call it, just to say, get into the software now, you have 15 minutes to get in. And I think in that invite, I even say, like, please join in 15 minutes and so on. And that's just a really quick win to just make sure that people are reminded, given that one last reminder. The other place you can schedule broadcasts is under the broadcaster, there's a schedule broadcaster. Now this is handy for scheduling reminders, but also to see what you've sent so far. So this is going to keep a record of what you've sent so far, who has sent it, and when it was sent. And if you need to add a new email or a new reminder, you can do that here. And this is similar to the broadcaster where you choose what you're going to send for. Generally, this one I'm sending on an activity by activity basis. So you can see here, I'm choosing to send it to all my participants. Just like in the broadcaster, I'm going to change who it's going to come from. And then I'm going to set a reminder. So I'm going to have it go on the 6th at 8 a.m. I believe I put it as. And this is how I would set that day of reminder, just to tell people, like, hey, don't make plans tonight. Remember, you have this focus group. I don't have a template created for this one. You definitely could go ahead and have that set up ahead of time. So I'm just going to adjust my 30-minute template to have it ready to go. And all the variables and stuff that you see here is exactly the same as the broadcaster. You don't have to worry about that. But you can adjust it if you need to. So if I wanted to adjust anything here, I definitely could do that. On my final page before I schedule, I can see when it's sent. I can see one of the records filling in. One thing I did notice, and you get to see me make all my mistakes, is that I put it for the wrong date. So I can go back and I can go ahead and adjust that and then hit next and then save my broadcast. Okay, we're at another question period. Any questions, Crystal?
There sure are. So we have Marco wondering, is there a way to ask for a little video task before the group so that participants can present themselves and we can check their connection quality?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So our developers are actively working on having something really integrated into the software. The technology we use for Realtime is really, really new. So the testing of it requires a lot more than just connection speed. The tests that we do, we have an automated test that happens by clicking on a link that people are given via the invite. And that tests not just their video connection and their connection overall, but it also makes sure that it can contact our server and so on and so forth. In terms of recording a quick little video, what most of our clients are doing if they want a little bit of a homework assignment like that is they actually set up a discussion board ahead of time, and they have people record a video, because our discussion boards are able to record video right in the discussion board, and that helps with getting with finding out if they have a webcam that works and that you've seen how they are on video, but it can act as a bit of an articulation question as well. And it's nice because we've even had situations where we've done that, and like the end client has come in and said, oh, I want this person, or I don't want this person, based on the video. So it helps us a little bit of a screener. But eventually that won't have to be separated into different parts. It's all going to be within the software. So a lot of things are still in development. It's really exciting, but it's on in our software goals for sure.
Awesome, thanks. And on that note, we have started releasing little blog articles every time we have a software update. So keep an eye out for those and you'll be able to see when that change takes place. Pam has a question as well. She's wondering, is this template and this system able to be used with outside recruiters or just those who are working with iTracks directly?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. The templates that are in there are intended for the email broadcaster. You can definitely, we can help you like grab it, but and send it to your recruiter. However, your recruiter is going to have to do a little bit more manually because those variables don't automatically fill in. We do have situations where we have been asked that, you know, our email broadcaster is not used. And there are ways to pull down the user information in order to send to your recruiter so they can send it through themselves. The key thing there is that each user, as they're loaded into our system, gets their unique URL. And this is a security precaution that makes people register and create a password that's not accessible to other people. So you will notice that there is an export in every users tab that you can export the user list, and then in column I believe, I'm not looking at it right now, but in column I, it has everyone's unique URL, and that unique URL just needs to go to the participant, basically.
Awesome, thank you. Another question, kind of related to spoofing, but a little bit different. What about VPNs? Are the email templates able to go through private networks?
These should be, like, a lot of the emails are really, like the spam blockers are really dependent on the email system, and it's the VPN, like if a client, like usually it's end clients that have issues with VPN. One thing I would note is it's always good to double check that people got it, right? Because there might be a case like we can't, we try our best, but we can't account for every single spam system that's out there. Some of them are very, like some people's individual inboxes are just very, very locked down. Some email systems from a corporate standpoint really just don't even let certain emails in. For example, Mimicast, which is probably doesn't mean much to most people, but it's an email system for you know, that IT people use for like a corporate office, and sometimes you have to send your emails one at a time. But if that comes up, our help desk is always there to help. I would recommend, usually what I do is I send out using the broadcaster. I do a double check, you know, in another way to make sure that participants did get it. You know, if you have a recruiter and they get on the phone, I just confirm that they received it, and if they didn't, then I send it more manually.
Awesome, thank you. And that looks like it for reminder and broadcasting questions. Okay,
so I'm going to move on to kind of the nuts and bolts of your actual group. I'm going to show you a couple of videos in a row. The first one I'm going to show you is how to set up your media and poll questions. Now, today I'm focusing on the video platform, just as a heads up. I haven't talked much about the text-based platform, so when I'm talking about setting up poll questions and stuff like that, it applies to the chat platform, but some of the things around like open-ended text questions, that sort of thing, is a little bit different. So just as a quick heads up. So I am, here we go, just give me a second. Okay, so one thing to note is that you can go in and you can do this as a moderator at any time. In this case, I have an active group because I was doing the screen recording with an active group, but you can go ahead and do this well in advance of your group. There is a media tab in your project where you can load any media, and the media that you load here will actually show up for every single activity in your project. All you have to do is click the Add Media button, search for the file, and then upload it. There's a number of different file types that can be loaded. If you need that, I can get that to you after, but I can give you an overview. You can load audio, video, a variety of image files, and PDFs. So I'm just going to choose here. I'm just choosing the file from my computer. I have a Windows computer. Most people do too, but it should just kind of let you navigate and choose a file and upload it. And then once it's uploaded, you can see it here. The other place where you can upload your media is right within the activity itself. Now, one thing to note is that and I'm just going to click into the activity. I actually had it open. There's a mod guide area where you can go ahead and add media here. So you can add media, you can also add links as needed right there. You can also add a bit of a guide in the guide area, which makes sense. In this case, I'm going to add a poll. So I started by creating a polls topic, and then I'm going to choose my question type, which in this case is a single choice poll. You type in your question text. It can be anything. Usually you're copying and pasting this. You don't have to type it in like me here today. And then you would just enter in the options. As some settings, you can make your polls uninfluenced. So if you have a group setting where you don't want them to see each other's responses until they respond, you can choose that setting and just save. And then I'm also just going to show you quickly, because there's some differences, not many, between the multiple choice and the single choice. So the multiple choice poll will let them choose more than one, whereas the single choice just lets them choose one. But here I'm going to add in a few options, and I'm also going to make a none of the above option, because with the multiple choice you can make any option exclusive. So if you don't want them, in this case I don't want them to choose none in any other option, and I'm also randomizing these. So when I have it randomized, it brings up a randomized column, and I can deselect anything I don't want randomized. So once again, that none, I want it to always stay at the bottom. And you can see, because this is a live group, you can see how this looks. You can post the questions. Now there is an open text question, which within the context of the video is actually not postable. So I just made a quick open text question, and you can see how this looks. Instead of being a postable item, it's something that you can mark as finishing. So if you want to load your entire guide and read off your guide in your group, for example, you can go ahead and do that, and you can mark it as finished as you go through. And that helps you. One of the things you can do is, I'll show you in the report, there's a conference timeline, and that shows up in your conference timeline as well. I'm just going to do a quick refresh. So the one thing I want to note here is that I kind of quickly added in some media here. Oh, I'm going to stop. That was another question. So I will go back to here. So I didn't add in media, but you can add in media to your guide as well, which I'll show you when we talk about starting your group and posting the media, which is the next section. So just a second here. Okay. Okay, so when your group is live, you can see there's a join now button, and that join now button will show up 15 minutes before your group actually is set to start. So when you click that join now button, it'll open up another tab. Participants and observers aren't able to get in until that 15 minutes beforehand, whereas I mentioned before, as a moderator, you can get in early to do all your setup and that type of thing. So I've gone ahead and much like in my last video, I have a discussion tab open already. So I'm just going to wait for my video to catch up to me. And you can see here on the side that I've already gone ahead and started my webcam. So one of the things you'll get when you come in is you'll be asked to join. And you'll choose to join as the host. There can only be one host, and I've already done this. I started my webcam and my audio, and I can see it going at the bottom. And then if you have someone in the waiting room, you get an icon saying you have somebody in the waiting room. Now, I just have one participant in here. If you had multiple participants in here, you'd be able to see all of the participants. And you can see that there is in the waiting room, there's a way to chat to them. So if you want to talk to people, and then what I did there is I just clicked the little checkbox to bring them into the main room. So I've approved my participant to join into the main room. Now, in this attendees area, I was on the waiting room tab, which is the very far right tab. There's also a discussion tab where I can chat to my participants as well. So once John, this is John, I brought him into the waiting room, I can see him in there. There's also a direct messages area where if I want to if someone direct messages me, I can see that they're there and have a direct conversation that's not seen by others. The other thing that I'm showing you here is that in the attendees area, I can make people louder or softer. So if someone's really loud or I need to mute them, I can do that here. I can also direct message them from that user list, and I can also remove them if I need to. So if I really am having problems with them, one of the things I can do is I can remove them. And here you can see I can move them back to the waiting room, remove them, and I can also request a screen share from here. So participants can do screen sharing if they need to. And then if you see that I'm hovering over him, that'll bring up kind of an overlay where I can also just request a screen share or direct message as well. I clicked back on the side here into the guide where I set up those polls earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and post a poll just to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to post the poll, and you can see that. So I'm just going to wait because so I posted the poll. You can see that for my my open, and I'm just showing you there that I can mark it as red, and it'll show it as marked. And if I go to my attendees area and look at that discussion, which is where we kind of started with the participant, I can see his results, and then there's also a link for me and my observers that we can click on to see a chart of the final results once all the participants have answered. So, and then I can also click to see, and then I can talk in there via chat if I really need to as well. Going back to my guide, and this is where I went ahead and I actually added in a piece of media to share. So, and you can have it here or you can share it at the top. So at the top is the drop-down box where you can add in that media, but you can also go ahead and share your media from here as needed. So I'm just going to hit share. Now, it shows up for you in a very different way than it does for the participant. It will take up the top of your mod guide area. For the participant, it's taking up the entire top of their screen, so they're seeing it much larger. And then you could also open it in a new window. Now, you can also force it to open a new window. It doesn't ever take the participant out. Certain things like PDFs and links will automatically open a new window. And that's really helpful if you're doing any sort of integration with audio, or sorry, with markups or anything like that. So that is that. I'm just going to go and show my screen. I feel like we're running a little short on time here today, so I'm just going to quickly run through the next one. So just in terms of your guide, some quick best practices. One of the things you want to think about is when you're developing your guide, ask people to mute when they're not talking. So when they're in that main room and you're just kind of giving them the rundown of what's going to happen. It's always just good and standard practice for people to mute when they're not talking. Let people know they're being recorded. Give them details on how to contact the help desk. So in that bar on the side, there is a little question mark, and that's the easiest way to contact the help desk. And then include some quick wins if they lose connection. So tell them to refresh, jump back in if they log out, etc. In terms of your guide and engagement quick wins, there's things right in the software that you can utilize just to spice up your guide a bit. the polling, the media. You can also screen share, your participants can screen share, and you can also include any online content. So one of the things you can do is any online exercise can be set up as a link that you can show to your participants, force them to see it in a separate window, and then when you stop sharing, it brings that link down. So it's not taking them out of the software ever. And just an example of that, we have this iMarket Pro where people can mark up exercise images. This is, I believe, the moderator view. And the nice thing here is that you can actually see in real time as a moderator what's being marked up and by who. Now, the other thing, the last thing I want to talk about is the observer role. I guess second last thing. So there is a specific observer role in the software for observers, and the observers have the option to join using a webcam or not. They always have access to the Backroom Chat, so even if they aren't sharing their webcam in that observer mosaic, they are able to chat with you using the Backroom Chat. And then you have settings when you set up your group to allow your observers to see your waiting room and direct messages or not. And then even if they do join with audio and video, the participants can never hear or see that observer room. You might be able to, as I show you, you can mute it, but you never, the participants never see it. So with that, I'll show you what that looks like in terms of the back room. Now, one thing to note is that this one is a little bit blurrier, and the quality of the screen sharing that I did. I apologize that it's a little bit blurrier. So what we have here is I'm on the attendees list, and where I'm going to go is this backroom tab. So underneath my attendees list is my backroom tab, and I actually have, oh, I collapsed it, I have to open it up. I actually have my observer set up with his webcam. This is optional. He doesn't have to go into this observer mosaic, but if there is somebody in the observer mosaic, they'll show up here and you can chat with them in the back room. You can also hear them if you want to. And if you can see me hovering over right now, I can mute them. So if I don't want to listen to my observers talk during my group, which most people don't, it's something that's completely mutable. And then the nice thing here is that I also have this backroom chat where I can just talk to whoever's joined. And I can also see who's online. So I can see my observer is online. I can direct message them. So your observers might not necessarily be your client. They might be your colleagues, and they're just joining in the back room and you want to direct message them. You do have the ability to direct message anybody in the direct messages area, as well as talking to the entire group in the back room. So the back room is a great way to build empathy between your customers and executives and sales team members or support staff. It's also really beneficial if you want to immediately debrief in the moment. So you remove, as soon as you remove your participants, you can have a debrief with your back room right away while everyone's thinking about it. And if you have people that are accustomed to in-person research, this is a really good way to transition them. Because they don't have to worry about being seen and heard. You know, this backroom capability still allows them to talk to each other and so on without having being worried about it. And then finally, I want to finish off with the reports. So there are a number of reports that you can get. One of the quickest reports is the conference timeline. And this is an Excel file that's available immediately after your activity is done. It shows all your system messages, all the chats from all your rooms, including your back room and your discussion area, and all the links to the poll charts and the poll chart results. It also shows when, and if you click to mark a question is finished, it'll show it. It'll also show when when you've posted any media. So if you want to correlate, you know, your video recording with when you posted media, you can do that. There's also video reports where you get. So there's single feed reports, which are great for things like if you are using facial coding or getting small clips. We also take single feeds of any screen recordings that you're doing. So if you're doing a usability study, you need to clip out where someone was having issues, you can do that. And then of course you get the full group recording. The participants are prominent, and then the moderator is a little bit smaller. So you can see Herb here is a little bit smaller because he's in as the moderator. You can also, as I said, with the single feed reports, some people will use video clipping and editing. We use a service called Clip Chat for that lets you go ahead and do that and clip to certain areas. So I realize I've gone over. I apologize. I'm seeing that Crystal's letting us go for a couple more minutes. Yeah, I'll open the floor to questions.
All right, and we do have a ton of questions. So Candace, I'll just get you to go to the final slide before we get to those, just because I know there's some people who are going to have to take off for appointments or whatever they have starting on the hour. So we will stay a few minutes late here and answer your questions for you. Before we do that though, I just want to let you know we do have a networking event coming up on June 2nd. So if you're able to join us for our launch party, we had that cool remote platform where you could go around to tables and talk to people just like it was back in the day when we could actually do that in person. So we are holding another networking event June 2nd. We've got our registration link live on our iTracks.com homepage. So that's what it looks like there. Just head there and sign up, and there will be more information coming out about that soon. But if you want to reserve your spot, because seats are limited, go ahead and register for that. Any questions that you have lingering after today, just shoot us an email at communications@itracks.com and we will help you out. I know there's some people who want to talk more about Realtime and sort of more of the features and what makes it stand out. If you're interested in like things about subscriptions or just more questions after today, please reach out and we're happy to talk to you. So on to these questions. Let's start up here. So Jean-Michel would like to know, are there integrated functionalities for doing groups in French? For example, different channels for translation or back rooms or conference lines?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. We've actually done quite a few projects in French now. Our back room, so we have the entire interface in French. So one of the language settings you can choose is French. We also have support staff in French, and I'm really excited to say that if you call into our main phone line right now, you will hear an option for French support. So we do have bilingual support on for most of the week. And if you want those help desk hours in French and English, our knowledge base has it, and so on. So really exciting. We've had that opportunity to have some really good staff that are bilingual. Anyway, in terms of the translator, we've had a lot of success with the translator coming in to the back room, starting their webcam and audio, and then what will happen is that the observers that want to hear the group in French, they would just join without their webcams, and then the ones that do want to hear the translator would just mute everybody but the translator. And that has had a lot of success. We have instructions written up for both translators and observers for that case because we've had it utilized a few times now.
Great. Next question, is there a way to delete old media? Having old files can be confusing.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So there is an edit function that you can go ahead and you can edit and put a new version of the media up. That is kind of a backlog request. If you ever need old files deleted, you can always reach out to our help desk and our help desk can help you with that. But if a file has been posted in order, and it's something to do with not compromising the data of a group that you've ran already, they don't fully delete it. So that's a really good feedback, and I'll take it back to them again. But Right now, you can edit any current versions that are in there. And if you need it deleted, we can help you with that. We just don't let people delete it on their own because of the issues it might cause with transcripts.
Great. Is it possible to import a guide hours before the interview goes live? In the past, this was not possible.
Oh yeah, you can do it anytime. So there is an import function that you can import between activities or import up or just add it in. You can do it at any time. As soon as that group or activity is booked, as a project manager or moderator, you can go in and set up your guide and import it as needed.
Great. Next question. The X is close, the X to close the expanded window is really, really close to the X that closes the whole platform. How can I prevent participants from closing the platform by mistake?
That's a good question. And that's just mostly to do with the with your browser. Yeah, it should open in a new window. And it should be obvious that, you know, they're closing the X on the page that they're looking at as opposed to the platform. Let me think about that and mention it, see if there's anything else we can do. Maybe there's a close button. One thing to note though is that as a moderator, you have full control over that. So as soon as you stop sharing and click that stop sharing button, if something is opened in a new window, it'll automatically open that as well, which is a huge benefit if you're wanting to look at a website or so on.
Great. Has live text been added as a help option?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Is live text or live chat added as a help option?
Yeah, there is. So if you click, I can't show you right now, but if you click on the little question mark, there is a live support link, which it will take you to our help desk as live chat. So, and then also there's a help icon if you're in the software in the upper right corner, just under your name, and that will give you the live support option. So we do have live chat. And you know, of course, email and phone as needed.
Great. Is there a way to disable the chat amongst participants so that only the host can chat to them, but they can't chat amongst one another?
Unfortunately not. I haven't seen participants really chat amongst one another in the context of the video group, but that's an interesting feature. It'd be good to see. Yeah, we'd have to see if that was needed. I can definitely bring it up to the software team as well.
Great. If you have a concierge, what role can they or do they play in setup or during the group?
Yeah, so they're going to be there early to greet your participants. They are also going to make sure that everyone's tested beforehand. We usually do the automated checks using the URL just because it's a little less invasive. And then as needed, we can bring them into the main room. So if we are noticing some of those numbers on that kind of automated testing is a little off or we're unsure, we can bring them into the main room just to make sure they're ready to go ahead of time. They can also help you with dismissing participants. We've had clients ask, you know, our concierge to keep people on hold for a little bit, and then just kind of monitor the group as it's going. You do have the option, even if you don't have concierge, to contact the help desk using that live chat as well. So we have a few different options available to you there.
Great. Mark was wondering, can we talk with audio with the observers in the back room while we pause the main room?
Yeah, for sure. So the nice thing about the audio, like, so if your observers have joined with audio and video, the participants never hear the audio from the back room. They might hear you talking to the observers in the back room, wondering who you're talking to. But that's something to note is that in the example that I showed you, I had muted the back rooms because I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to pay attention to my participants. But if you need to, you can open up that back room and talk to them, yeah, without issue.
And I believe too, I've done a few groups myself just as a marketer. One thing that I was able to do was temporarily throw the participants back into the waiting room, talk to my observers, and then bring them all back in, and then they weren't able to hear me either. So that may be an option too.
Exactly, and even for debriefs, like we have a lot of clients that use it for that kind of right after the group debrief. You can remove your participants from the study and then, you know, just open up that backroom channel to yourself and just be able to chat.
Okay. Travis has a question. If the exit button is hit, is there a warning asking you if you really want to leave? And I believe I know the answer to this, but I will let Candace take it.
Yes, there is a big warning that comes up. So we have a stop recording button that's used in certain pharmaceutical cases for adverse events, which will remove your observers. And then we also have an end button, and both bring up big messages on your screen saying, are you sure you want to do this, as a double check. So it doesn't just automatically close everything. It tells you, are you sure you want to do this? And this is what's going to happen if you do this.
Yes, and the good news, again, I've gone through this as a user myself, just working in marketing. The good news is if one of your participants does somehow get through everything and get themselves out, they can get back in really easily, no problem. It opens right back up for them, so no biggie. Can we video mark some sections during the session to edit or highlight in the final reel?
Yeah, so what we would recommend is using that clip champ. Yeah, you can't do highlights during the interview or focus group at this time, but you can definitely note the timing and then use something like clip champ to grab those portions after the fact.
Great. Two more questions. We have, is there a feature to divide the main room into two small groups for certain activities?
Not yet. I know breakout rooms is requested and it is something that's being evaluated. But at this time, it's just there's a main room and a waiting room. And just the main room does show the video.
Yes, one nice thing about being independent and innovative though is that is always changing. So keep an eye out or put those requests in if that is a feature.
Yeah.
The more requests that come in, the more likely they are to get done. So feel free to send those requests in or submit them via the Go platform. Is there any way that I will accidentally, or that an observer could accidentally make themselves known to participants?
No, there's no way that the observers have the option to do that. If they're set up in the observer role, they're only going to have access to that back room. And that there's just not a way for that to happen.
Okay, awesome. Well, that is all of the questions. Thank you, everyone. I know quite a few of you are here late, so thank you for sticking with us and for all of your questions. Again, we are available, communications@itrax.com. We've got live chat on our website and lots of ways for you to get in touch with us. If you haven't been to the website in a few months, stop by. It's changed a lot since you've last seen it, so there's some great stuff to see there. And don't forget to reserve your spot for that June 2nd networking event. So with that, we will bid you adieu and thank Candace and hopefully see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Bye.